Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. It's a pretty nice day. It's not bright and sunny as you can see. Heavy cloud cover. Not really supposed to get any rain today, but definitely have a thick cloud cover over us today. Yes, I know, I'm not wearing my seatbelt. I'm driving down a one-lane, gravel, rocky, very rough road that the only people that ever drive down it are people that I know, doing about 15, 20 miles an hour. But I do it, well, it's to troll you, because some of you, it just irritates the snot out of you. And, you know, that's just me. Anyways, so the focus has shifted once again. We're back on Gaza, apparently, according to the news. You know, they're the ones that's leading the charge of where to pay attention to. And I'm not talking about mainstream news either, although that's kind of included. But, you know, social media, the minor news, in my opinion, they're getting to be almost as bad as mainstream news. A lot of it is. Anyway, so Israel said that they're going to completely take over all of Gaza. They're going to bulldoze it down. They're going to occupy it permanently. That it's their land. They've made the decision. They've also been, their Air Force has been doing some pretty heavy bombing in Yemen at the port there in retaliation for the Houthis attacking them several times recently. So that's kind of the big focus in that area right now. Of course, you know, all the other stuff's still going on, just not being talked about today. But the one thing I wanted to mention, the president came out today and he said he is going to end HUD and Section 8 housing. And they're proposing of, you know, saying, listen, this is up to the states can have it. But he also said that there would be a time limit, meaning that, you know, if you qualified for Section 8 housing, you can't just live there forever. You could live there for maybe a year or two, and then you're on your own again. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is not because I'm against it. Every time I talk about something like that, some yahoo in the comments, oh, you must be a liberal commie, you must love this stuff. No, I think Section 8 housing and pretty much all top forms of welfare are horrible. We should have never allowed it to happen in this country, and it should not exist today. But, like I have said many times, when you take a system that a society or a segment of a society has become dependent upon for a few generations now, we're now into like second, third, or more generations, and you go and you rip that carpet out from under them, it is going to create problems. And we should prepare for it. It's not that I'm against it, but you should prepare for the consequences, because even good actions have consequences. We are in a time period right now, and not just because of Trump being in office. I'm going back at least to COVID, okay? Where, and I've talked about this. I just talked about it, I think it was this morning or yesterday, of how people are more angry, more insane, more addicted to substance abuse items, more just, they're crazy. There's greater social problems than we've ever seen before, right? And we could go into long talks of why, but the point is that it's happening. And I don't think that any decent, logically thinking person would argue the difference, that we are in that point. We're also we're seeing race and class become a wider gap and bigger problems. Maybe getting to the point of as big, if not bigger, than during the time of the 1960s. We're seeing just this hatred for races, for another race other than yours, right? There's a lot of problems. We're also on the brink of an economic depression, probably, at least, maybe worse. And we're doing that with a society that for the first time in human history is basically incapable of doing anything on their own. And I know I'm very generalizing, but stay with me on this. A society that, you know, is lucky enough to pump their own gas, let alone do anything else. You know, they can't even go to the grocery store now They got to order it in. They can't do anything without their phones and their coffees and their internet and all of the modern conveniences. Even the poor people. While there are some people that are poor and they don't have these things, statistically, even the people that live in poverty in the United States has cell phones and internet access and air conditioning and all this kind of stuff. All right, so you take all that, you take the high drug use, both illicit drugs and prescription drugs, and the chemicals and everything, and the insanity and the economy and the race and all this kind of stuff, and then you take I don't know how many, I have no idea how many people live in Section 8 housing, but you take poor people, and many of them are of a minority race, and you kick them out. They've also been talking about limiting what you can purchase with food stamps. Again, I'm not opposed to that. I can remember years ago when I was young. Young, like 16, 17 years old. I had a job on a farm, but I also had a side job where I worked at a little grocery store. And this is back when food stamps were actually stamps, okay? It wasn't a card. And I was always amazed at how these people would come in with food stamps and they would buy all this name brand junk food that we didn't eat when I was a kid. And I'm not saying everyone's that way, but it is true to a certain extent that a lot of people kind of waste it. They don't eat healthy. I mean, statistically, we see that poorer people on food stamps don't eat very healthy, even though for the most part they don't pay for their food, right? So they're talking about changing that if you get food stamps, you can only buy healthy stuff. I'm not opposed to that. But that's going to cause problems too. People are going to be upset. We're pushing the low middle class of society to the brink, okay? And you may say, oh, that's extreme. We're not pushing them to the brink. It's not going to take that much to push this society to the brink, folks. You could shut off their cell phones for a day or two, and boom, they've been pushed to the brink. Shut down all the Starbucks, cut off their debit cards or whatever they're using to transact with money. Those things that seem kind of minor in some ways would push people to the brink of just insanity and losing it. And so when you kick people out, when you have all these other problems going on, you restrict the amount of what kind of food they can purchase, all of these things, we're pushing society, okay? Maybe that's part of the plan. Maybe that's what they want. And I'm not, and maybe it's not. Maybe it's just something that'll happen. I was thinking the other day, during Donald Trump's first term as president, he had to deal with the whole Russia investigation, the George Floyd BLM riots, and COVID. That was the three big things. Now, I'm not blaming him for any of those things, although the COVID stuff he does have, but we're not going into that in this video. I'm not saying that these things were his fault necessarily, but they happened under his presidency. And in the first 100 days or so of this one, while there's been a lot of chaotic stuff, there's not been anything big. So the likelihood that there will be some kind of big event during his presidency is, I think, pretty solid. Okay? Now, could it be another one of these George Floyd BLM type moments? I know that there's been stories recently and people talking on podcasts that, well, the BLM has kind of gone away and they don't really have the organization anymore, all that kind of stuff. I get it, but they're online. I'm seeing it, and I don't know how to say it without saying it. So I'll say what I want, and we'll see what you and the censors like. During the Biden administration and beforehand, it was like everyone, especially during the BLM stuff, right? It had become socially unacceptable to say certain words or certain things about minorities, right? And you were shadow banned, you were banned, you were all these kinds of things if you didn't just uphold the BLM banner and all this kind of stuff. That's really changed a lot. In fact, even, certain offensive slur words have become seemingly okay to say online now. Talking about saying offensive, which I don't care, but offensive words, offensive things to transgender, gay people, LGBTQ, all that kind of stuff. All of a sudden, it's okay. And I'm not opposed to that necessarily. I'm a full believer in free speech. I don't care how offensive and hurtful it is. Doesn't mean you should say it, but, it also means it shouldn't be criminalized or whatever. But anyways, and in doing so, there seems to be this bigger rift. I was watching this guy, I don't even know his name. He was a black man, and he was pointing it out that for years, a lot of minorities, a lot of black people have been calling for a race war. And he said they better be careful because it looks like they may be going to get it. Because we're seeing this rise of, man, I know I'm going to get beat up for this, but I don't even care anymore. We're seeing a rise in people being proud of their whiteness, okay? Like never before. And we can't ignore the elephant in the room of this clashing of not all but certain parts of black society and not all but certain parts of white society. It's becoming a bigger deal than I think most people think, especially if you get online. I mean, I'm not necessarily in those places all the time because of this. I kind of go looking and I find stuff, and it's becoming a bigger deal. There's more and more tension is what I'm saying. And so when you throw all of this stuff together, the possibility of a cultural / race / class war happening in the United States, simply because society is just so broken down and is lost hope and is just kind of giving themselves over to evil in themselves, which is the same thing. And then you kick people out of their homes, poor people and minorities, black people, Hispanic people out of their home. People are getting deported. Families are being separated and that's not a liberal thing. Now just stop it. It is true though. If you've got an illegal guy that come across and he married a legal woman and they kick him out, families are being separated. I'm not opposed to it. But the fact is it's happening. And even if it's a good thing for them to kick people out, it is most definitely causing just this contention and problems and things, okay? I think as a society we are kind of cooked. Will the economy completely collapse? Will we go into hyperinflation or hyperdeflation? Will we see a big world war between us and Russia or China or Iran or all three? I don't know. I mean, it's possible, but I don't know. But is our society just kind of done for? I think that's undeniable. Next to having a true spiritual revival, which I know there's ones that pop up. There was one, a year or two ago, everyone thought it was, and I said then, I think it's fake, and it's kind of fizzled out. A true revival really doesn't just change people, it changes the nation, it changes the country. We haven't seen that in centuries, really. Next to that happening, I don't think there's anything that's going to fix our society. I think it's just going to become more and more evil. I think it's going to follow what Scripture tells us, that humans just become worse and worse. And the only little bit of spiritual stuff that they cling to, it's all fake anyways. And so we need to be preparing for this. Race wars. It's going to happen, folks, whether you like it or not. Class wars. It's going to happen. Political wars between, I'm talking on the streets. I'm talking about violence. I'm not talking about actual armies standing up against each other. I'm talking about violence on the streets. This kind of stuff it's building. There's like this pressure cooker building pressure, and at some point it's going to happen. And you need to be getting ready for it. you should be head on a swivel, situational awareness all the time, operational security, top focus, because this kind of stuff is building. And while many of these policies, a lot of us like, the consequences, at least in the short term, could be catastrophic. You need to get ready for it. It's time to get your houses in order and prepare mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.